Hello, and welcome to the Margarita Alcantara Show. And I am going to talk today about your throat chakra as a new earth entrepreneur. And when you are a new earth leader who is a spiritual entrepreneur, because oftentimes that's what we end up being, really showing up in service in that bigger way, because our business is actually a Merkaba, a Merkaba of light, a vehicle of light to really help our planet transform. So today's topic is how to ignite your throat chakra power as a spiritual entrepreneur. And I'm going to talk about some really key points because your power as a new earth leader really comes from being connected to all that you are, really being in your mastery. And so this work really is for those who really are already opening into their mastery. They're really kind of healed in their core traumas and triggers. They're no longer having these outdated beliefs around money and how it's unspiritual and things like that, that all of that stuff is really part of the old paradigm. And so I'm going to really speak into how your energy really is connected with your throat chakra, where that comes from, why visibility is important in making your impact as a new earth leader, and my number one prediction for New Earth Leader visibility in 2025. I spoke about that last year, but I'm going to really get into it, and I'm going to share with you how you get to amplify that through your throat chakra and the power therein. So that said, if we've just met, my name is Margarita, and I am an activator for the new code of power. I activate that in my clients at sacred sites all over the planet, such as Machu Picchu, Mount Shasta, Sedona, and other places. And I am a new earth leader, entrepreneur, power coach. So I help those who are in their leadership as new earth leaders really activate their light and empowerment on the planet so that the world can heal. And part of that is really being connected to your voice. And that's one of the things that I'm just going to even preface it by saying that those who are really in the spiritual community, that's something that really is a superpower when you can tap into that. Because when you are tapped into the power of your voice and using it in a really high frequency way so that your frequency is transmitted through your voice, through your energy, through your embodiment, because it really is an embodiment when you are showing up as a leader, when you are really showing up with your work as a coach, as an energy worker, a healer, a mystic, an energy worker on this planet, right? And you're a spiritual leader. And so that's one of the things that really is not really talked about enough is really the power of your voice, because a lot of people in the spiritual community, and I'm just going to be honest about this, they tend to just really value being very quiet. They value not really speaking up. They value being introverted, and they value being really just kind of quiet on various levels and just really focusing on the bliss states. And honestly, that has really nothing to do with really being in your power as a spiritual leader on the planet, because your being really involves being embodied. Your being involves being embodied, being in your spiritual power as an embodied person of light, as an embodied being of light. And so one of the reasons why I say that is because a lot of people in the spiritual community, they value just really kind of chasing all these bliss states and just really feeling blissed out all the time and just feeling high vibe and talking about being high vibe. And honestly, that has nothing to do with being high vibe, like just kind of being in that spiritual bypassing energy around your life, around your body, being disconnected from your body, just only focusing up here and not being grounded in your physical embodiment. That is just very common that I see in the spiritual community. And that is really, that can really hurt you when you want to be embodied in your power and when you really want to be in your mastery, because really being in your mastery means being connected not only to the cosmic frequencies, but being super grounded in all those lower chakras, like your root, your sacral, your solar plexus, and even your heart, because that is that bridge chakra, right? And so when you are deeply grounded on the planet, and especially as a starseed, you really get to anchor that in and anchor in your light because until you really ground yourself, you are not really amplifying your light on the planet. And a lot of people in the spiritual community, they have that kind of twisted around where they're just like, no, I just need to be like spiritual and high vibe and all that stuff. And it's not about that. It's really about being in your embodied state and being embodied as a new earth leader and in your power. So that said, I'm going to talk about why visibility is important in making your impact as a new earth leader. And so the reason why being visible is so important when you're showing up and doing your sacred work in the world is because, and I fell into this trap myself when I first started out as a newbie, like I guess it's 15, 16 years ago now, where, I see this with a lot of newbies who are, new on their spiritual path, or they're new to being a spiritual entrepreneur, is that they really believe that just being high vibe or, really just meaning well and or being skilled in your work is enough to magnetize your soul community to you so that you can serve them and help them bring that healing into the world. And I actually had to learn that the hard way because that was my take when I first started out. I'm like, I'm really good at what I do. And, this was when I first started out as a licensed acupuncturist, which obviously I still am. But when I was first starting my private practice, I was like, I'm good at what I do. My heart's in the right place. I mean well. And now it's game time, right? Like all the most amazing patients are just going to find me, right? And that's not how it worked. And I was really sorely mistaken in that understanding when no one magnetized to me just instantly just because I was awesome, right? It doesn't work that way. You actually get to talk about your work. You actually get to really promote it, and not from a place of, old school marketing, because yes, on a level, that's what it can be. But where we are opening into as new earth leaders, it's really leading that energy. It's leading with your energy, leading with the energy of your voice and your power. And that gets exhibited not only through your frequency and your embodiment, but through your voice. And so that's really important. And so that's why being in your visibility is so important as a new earth leader, because then you can communicate and connect with. That's the whole purpose of all of this, right? We're not here to be solitary creatures. And I see this all the time with a lot of people who are just starting out in their spiritual entrepreneurship or their spiritual journey, is that they really value being a lone wolf. And I cannot tell you that I totally get it. And also that totally has nothing to do with the new energies that are coming in, because Ascension is really about doing this in community from this place of, you're not just this single island and you just, be on your ascension path by yourself. Because that actually is not part of the whole energy of the new earth. It is all about connection, and it's all about creating community and to be in unification. And so that does not happen by you just like being in the corner by yourself and, doing some spiritual work on your own, right? That happens from you interacting with those who you get to support and you get to elevate through your sacred work. And so that's where the visibility comes in, because not only do you get to be in touch with your voice through your heart, and it also comes from being really in the liberation of your voice, really being the liberation of your truth and the authentic expression of your truth, which does come through your voice, not only from feeling that frequency in your body. So when you are connected with your authentic expression, then you can connect with your ideal clients, your soul community, and then you can just magnetize them, not only from the frequency that you show up with in the world, right? Because, like back then when I was first starting, I wasn't even on social media. I wasn't really familiar with it. And, I just really thought that, through the ethers, they're going to feel me and they're going to find me and it's all going to be amazing, right? And on one level, it is true that your frequency really communicates throughout the planet and really throughout the galaxy, it does take a level of mastery and experience and implementation and integration and embodiment in order to really do that. And part of that comes through your voice. And then when you do, then you're able to connect with your soul community and you can help them. And that's really what you're here to do, is to really embody your power on a really high level. So my number one prediction for New Earth Leader Visibility in 2025, this is something that I expressed before last year. I think it was in November that I did talk about what that is. And, there were 5 New Earth Leader predictions that I covered in this masterclass I did. I think it was back in November. And I'm going to talk about one of them right now, and that is authenticity. So this is really huge because a lot of people in the spiritual community, they have gotten by, and I'm going to be really honest here, they've gotten by just really really pretending to be someone that they're not, right? Like sometimes it's really just about, putting on the face, and then, I'll do a post, right? And then you just kind of curate this kind of like fake reality of what you only want people to see, when the truth is that this whole wanting to have this curated perfect feed on social media, for instance, or looking perfect or appearing perfect and all that stuff, I mean, all of that actually comes from a trauma response, that whole perfectionism. And I get it, because I was there myself, back in the day when I was still moving through some of my core stuff. But then you really just start opening up into the reality of who you are. And the truth is that maybe like 2, 3, 4 years ago, you could kind of get away with pretending to be someone that you're not, and it's just not going to work anymore, because it's just something that, especially if your community is full of energy workers and healers and spiritual leaders and spiritual guides and coaches, we can see that through that stuff right away, right? And so the most important thing that's really going to be important this year, if you're a New Earth leader showing up in the world, is to really be in your authentic expression, to really be real with your authenticity. And so authenticity is in, perfection is out. So if you're still trying to get this curated feed, and of course, you don't need to be sloppy about it. You get to have some level of, alignment there in how you're presenting yourself. But the perfectionism thing is out. Trying to be, looking like some kind of guru that you really admire because you think that's going to work for you. That is not going to work for you, because whenever you try to show up in kind of like that inauthentic expression, then it's just going to be a bomb. Like, it's going to bomb out, because not only can people detect your fakeness from a mile away, and then that's just a turnoff, right? Because even those people who are not very in touch with themselves energetically, they're just going to have a feeling like, there's something about that person. I can't put my finger on it, but I don't trust them. And that's how they're going to feel, even if they're not really connected to their own energy or their own body or whatever, right? Or not really developed on their path. They're going to just be like, there's something about that person I don't really trust, and I don't get them. And I don't like it, and that's how it's going to feel to them, because when you're inauthentic, that too is a frequency. And then when you're showing up and not being in your authentic self, then people can detect that from a mile away, and they're going to either swipe, turn off that channel where you're speaking, it's just not going to be a good thing for you. So being in your authentic expression, what does that mean? That means, who are you really? Are you, because some people want to just try to come off as this perfect being, or, like all the makeup and the hair is in place, right? Or, looking like they've got it together 100% of the time. And no one is like that, right? You get to have your faults, and you get to have your quirks. And it's about really being who you are, not what you think other people want you to be. And that's really an important thing to understand, because if you are trying to be something that you're not, it's not going to work. And you're just going to come across as fake, and your soul community will not find you because they're going to be too busy swiping away from your work, from your posts, from your videos or whatever, because they're just going to be like, I don't know who this clown is, but that's not something I connect with. So it's really about, being connected to your true voice, to your true self. And I even have some notes here just to make sure that I don't forget to share what some of these points are, because it's really important. And then the other part is being so deeply dialed in with who you serve that you end up repelling those who aren't a fit for your higher work, your programs, your offerings, your services. And and that's because your messaging is so on point. And that's one thing too, that's kind of connected to the authenticity piece, is really allowing yourself to be who you really are, not trying to be a people pleaser. Because there's a lot of people in the spiritual community who are like that, who just like try to give people what they want, or, they're like, oh, people like this, or I get a lot of likes on this. Yeah, but is it aligned for your work? Is it aligned for what you do? Because if you are just doing things for likes, that validation should be coming from yourself, not from other people. So that's where, your inner work comes in too, right? Because, I have, I think something like almost 24,000 followers on Instagram, for instance. And it's, and people get like really hooked up on the numbers, like wanting to get more likes and all that stuff. But in the process of that, you forget to realize that it's not about how much validation you can get, how many pats on the back you can get and be like, good job, because it's not about that. When you're really in your new earth leadership, that you're here to rock the boat. And that means that you're going to be doing things that some people may not like. And that's okay. In fact, you're okay with rocking the boat. You're okay with sometimes pissing people off, not for the heck of it, but because that's just, some of this truth that you're sharing is really real and really is important as you channeling this information, your special message, your channeled message for the planet. And so sometimes it's going to ruffle feathers. Sometimes some people are not going to like it, and that's okay. And that's why it's also really important to really be healed in your core traumas and your triggers, because if you're still hung up on getting validation from outside of yourself, then it's going to show up in your work, because then you're going to start creating posts that are going to, just get you likes versus be in service. Because one of the things that I've discovered is that, some of those posts that I've done where I've gone viral, and there have been a couple of things that, I've done that do that and have made me go viral. But a lot of the more kind of converting content that I've created, where I really draw in my community to me, that comes from those non-viral posts, those ones that really help your community understand what you take a stand on, what your offerings are about, who you are about, how you can help them, all that stuff. That's all really, really important. So your true throat chakra power, and I'm just going to say this really quickly too, it is not about just mouthing off, right? Like some people who are new on their ascension path or their spiritual path, or as a spiritual entrepreneur, please don't do this if you're a spiritual entrepreneur. But some people, I've seen this happen, and especially in the past couple of months, where people emotionally unload on their community, right? And that is like a big no, because you do get to have your feelings, you do get to have your emotions. But in terms of when you're still operating from that unhealed, wounded place, and then you show up with that and you communicate from that place, that is a whole different vibe. And I wouldn't recommend doing that, because that would not be in service to your community. Versus, having your emotions and your feelings, really processing that, really being embodied in, that place from a grounded place. And if there's still something to share from that place, you share it from, the scar, not the wound, and a lot of people who are spiritual entrepreneurs, especially when they're new, they operate from and they speak from the wound, right? And so that is one of those really, really important things, is that your true throat chakra power is not about mouthing off and having unhinged meltdowns to your community, right? Because that would not serve them. It really comes from knowing who you are, being connected to yourself, being connected to your energy, being very familiar with your energy, cultivating your energy on a regular basis from a place of, I know what is, what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me, right? And being really discerning in your energy field and really being dialed in with who you're serving. Because I get it, you just want to help everyone. And that was something that in the beginning, I was like that too. I'm like, I just want to help everyone. So anyone who wants some, support with acupuncture, with Reiki, come on down. And, wouldn't you know it, everyone and their mom came in, right? Which is not a good thing, because then you don't get the people who do want to heal themselves, right? Because I'm not here to, let's say, heal you or cure you or anything like that, right? You get, like, when you are just super general and you're like, I want to help everyone, and then you don't dial in with specifically who you're serving, you will get everyone. You will get those people who are just like comparison shopping. They're just looking for, like, basically the cheapest price instead of, can this person help me, right? You're going to get those bargain shoppers, the ones who don't really want to do the inner work, who just kind of want to, have someone to cure them. And they're always going to be disappointed, because no one will actually cure you. You cure yourself. But there are very powerful healers, and coaches and mentors out there. And I consider myself one of those people who's been in that mastery, who's able to facilitate that, who facilitate a high level of healing so that you can elevate and, so your body can cure itself, right? So there are 3 questions to ask yourself when it comes to your authenticity. If you're like wondering, okay, Margarita, this is awesome, but how do I know if I'm in my authenticity or not? Well, first of all, you're going to feel it, right? You may be able to BS other people, but you can't BS your own self. I mean, sometimes some people can, if they're really in that level of denial, but you can tell from a check-in, a simple check-in with yourself, a simple check-in with your heart, and just being like, is this really aligned for me? Like, is this really what I'm desiring to express in the world? And you'll either get a yes or a no from your heart, right? And when you're connected with yourself and your heart, that's going to come very easily. But here are 3 questions you can ask yourself. So number 1 is, how do you authentically express yourself when you're in private? Because I'll tell you something, if you are not in integrity in your own life, but then you show up on social media and you're like, I'm super in my integrity, I am awesome, and blah, 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 right? Like, if you're showing up and you're expressing yourself in a certain way that is a 180 from who you are, when there's no camera on you, when there's no phone watching your every move, when there's no spotlight on you, then there's a level of integrity there that is lacking, right? And so you get to ask yourself, are you authentically expressing yourself when the camera is on versus when the camera's off? I mean, because that's important, right? Like, I mean, if you're showing up as, you know, this amazing being online, but then, behind the camera, or, when people aren't watching, you're a totally different person, or you're totally, like, not in integrity with who you are, then that's something to consider. Question 2, what style of communicating makes your heart light up? And notice I didn't say, what style of communicating do you want to be expressing yourself as, right? Like, I mean, because there are a lot of people who communicate in a certain way, they show up and they speak a certain way because they saw someone else do it. Or, and it's okay to have, like, a little inspiration, but then to, like, totally embody someone else's body of work is totally not authentic, right? Because you have your own unique codes of expression that are very unique to you and is actually part of your superpower. So those things that you are afraid of taking ownership of, all those things you're afraid of yourself, that you don't want to explore, that you think is super weird and you don't want to show that to other people, that's actually your superpower, you know? And so, for me, part of my understanding was, like initially I was really kind of avoiding my power. I was avoiding being gifted. I was avoiding talking about it. So, for instance, like, my third eye is very powerful and my heart is also very powerful. And because I was so scared of it, I shut it down, both of them. And this was like, I don't know, um, 20 years ago or something, 25 years ago or something like that, maybe 30. But, I shut it down, which then, propelled me into this kind of like shamanic initiation of sorts, because when you are not connected to your gifts, that is very dangerous energetically place to be. And so that said, obviously that's not, a problem for me anymore. There, I went through my whole process of accepting and embodying all of my power, and whatever that is on all levels of my being beyond time and space. And part of that was my third eye power. Part of that was my heart chakra and the power of my heart and the power of love, right? And really connecting to my power. And once I did, and I accepted all of that, then that became a frequency vibration embodiment that just naturally emulates from me. It exudes from me just because that's who I am, right? And I've accepted that as being one of my superpowers, is just really being in that power, and also like having that power and gift and ability to activate like literal primary timelines just by speaking it, right? Like that's what my activations are like. And once I allowed myself to accept that, so instead of asking myself questions, and I'm sharing my process with you because so many people in the spiritual community are struggling with this right now. They're struggling with accepting their power. They're struggling with accepting that they are so powerful. And that's hurting them, So if you're one of them, I hope this is serving you right now, me sharing my process. But, once I really took ownership of my powers, my gifts and abilities completely, meaning that if there's some person on the interwebs who's like, you suck, you're terrible, who do you think you are? Believe me, I've already asked myself all of those questions. All right. I already initiated myself through all of that. And you should too, right? You should consider, and I mean, maybe you're going through some of that beginning process right now of who do I think I am? My question to you would be, who are you not to be? Who are you not to be so powerful, to have these gifts? Right? So coming back to this question about your authenticity, about what style of communicating makes your heart light up, this is where your unique qualities and abilities comes to shine. But that requires you being in full acceptance and embrace of all of your powers and gifts and abilities, no, unconditionally, right? So the third question to ask yourself about your authenticity is, if you were to ask your heart how she wants to be heard, what would she say? So she might say something like, I want to bring some of my humor into things. I mean, that's naturally who I am. And for me, that's also a part of me as well. So sometimes I will bring in, my humor, and even like maybe your humor is like a dry humor, or maybe it is like a really biting humor. Maybe you have a certain way of conveying yourself that is very intense, or maybe it's super gentle, or maybe it's very soft and opening, right? Like there's a frequency to the way you communicate, and it's very unique to you. And so that's something that you get to really embrace and embody. And then what all this has to do with your throat chakra, like authenticity and all that, when you are connected to who you really are, you're not afraid in showing up, as who you really are, right? Because I mean, so many people, especially when they're spiritual entrepreneurs and they're empaths and they're introverts, they're really scared about getting judged by showing up, whether it be after putting up a post or sending out an email to their email community, or maybe it's showing up and doing a live and being afraid that you're going to get instantly judged by your aunt across the, on the other side of the globe or something, or maybe an ex is going to find you. Honestly, when you are really in your level of full acceptance of who you are and your gifts and your abilities, and you really embrace your being, and you are embodied in that, what other people think of you in terms of judgments, in terms of haters and all that, it doesn't matter, honestly. I mean, on one hand, sure, if it's something that you get to learn from and you can reflect on it and be like, is this something I can learn from, or is there some truth in that criticism? And then if, once you kind of like did a quick check-in on yourself, if it's not, and it comes from a place of maybe this person being threatened by your light, or they're being jealous because they're not showing up in their light and here you are doing that, right? Then honestly, clear it out, move it out, right? It has nothing to do with your mission. It has nothing to do with you. Even if they're like, you are a terrible person and you suck and whatever they want to throw at you, right? It still has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them, and they're being triggered by you showing up in your light. And it's okay. Keep showing up in your light anyway. And, if I can survive that kind of, all the hateration that I've dealt with in the past, 4 or 5 years for speaking my truth, from a place of, being in your sovereignty, being empowered in who you are and showing up in your power, then, anyone can do that, right? So that said, all of this to say, your authentic expression really informs how you show up with your voice. It, really shows up in how you're able to connect with people. And that's really important, because if you're here with your amazing, unique gifts to activate light and empowerment on the planet, you get to also exhibit that in your own body, in your own life, in your own, how you do your day to day, right? And so this is all really important. And especially when you're being visible and you want to be more seen and heard, then you want to show up really in that highest. So, when you're, shooting a video of yourself, or you're making a post on social media, or you're emailing your community, you do want to really be tapped in with the power of your throat chakra and the power of your visibility, and how that gets to show up and exude in the world. Because the world needs what you have, right? The world desires to receive the power and the healing and the transformation that you have to provide. And so I actually go deeper into this. If this is something you want to learn more about, I go deeper into this in a powerful 3-day in-person live retreat with me that I'm having here in Sedona on the Spring Equinox, March 19th through the 21st. And that retreat is called the New Earth Leader Visibility Retreat in Sedona. And it's just super, super powerful. And we are going to be going into, there's like visibility workshops. So I'll be helping you hone in on who your ideal client is, how you get to express from your authentic truth versus, trying to be somebody else, right? And really tapping into your visibility blueprint. I'll be sharing about that. We'll be doing some workshopping on that. And also, I will be taking you to some of my favorite vortexes here in Sedona to activate the power of your throat chakra and your visibility. You'll be in community with other like-minded New Earth leaders who want to transform and heal the world. And I will also be leading a shamanic ceremony, because I'm also a shamanic practitioner. And I'll have my medicine drum with me and lead you through a powerful shamanic journey and ceremony that will transform your entire being, because the work that I do is really powerful and goes really deep. So if that's something you want to be supported around and you want to do work with me in person here in Sedona, I invite you to join me. And the link to learn more about it is below in the caption. But just to recap what we covered today, I talked about why visibility is important and making your impact as a New Earth leader. My number one prediction for New Earth Leader visibility in 2025, what this has to do with your throat chakra power, and next steps as well. So just remember that your power it's here. And it's just a matter of tapping into it, the vitality of it, the potency of it. And it's something that I can help you with as well, if that's something you want to take some next steps on. But today, what I covered, will give you an understanding of really that frequency and that vibration that you get to carry and that you get to exude in the world, because your work is important, your higher work is important, and you as a spiritual entrepreneur and showing up as a new earth leader who's actually being a leader in the world, not someone who talks about being a leader, who says they want to be a leader, but they are a leader, right? This is what it takes. This is what it requires. It requires you to show up in the truth of who you are. And you're completely capable of doing that. So I hope that served you. Much love, light, and power. The replay will be here in just a few moments as well. Hope that served you.